Good morning.
Hello, Dawn. Glad you sorted your hair out. A few moments ago, I thought you were going to go live with almost in curlers. But
Almost.
yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, of course. So
Oh no, I know.
yeah.
It's all right. I did realise.
Mm. Well, it's
I haven't had my hair in curlers, by the way.
no, 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 and mine's surviving. I must admit, one of my great fears at the moment is that when it comes to cut my own hair, or someone do it. I'm dreading that. I'm not just dreading that. I'm dreading the next episode that follows. But we'll deal with that when it comes. I think we're okay, just about still. So
Yeah.
yeah. So this is episode 19. It's the Saturday, the 11th of April, 2020. Nice hot day yesterday, warm day, lovely day. Probably people were in their gardens if they've got one, and I think viewing figures were down, so people have got a bit of catching up to do. The weather's going to get worse a couple of days' time, so maybe they'll catch up then. And feedback, not so hot, but I'll get into that in a second. I noticed Michael Bublé and his wife are doing a YouTube similar to this, but they do it in 2 languages and throw in a few exercises as well. What do you think of that?
Anything to keep you going. Anything to keep you going. I don't know, but if I spoke in a different language you didn't understand, it could go pear-shaped, couldn't it?
Have you got anything to give us in another language?
I understand more of French, and I understand a bit of German as well, but I haven't done it for years, and I'm quite honest with you, it's such hard work for me.
Go on,
It doesn't come naturally.
Go on, have you got a phrase for us?
Une chambre, s'il vous plaît.
Who? Pajamas?
Can I have a bedroom, please?
It was. Right. Normally it's deux beers, s'il vous plaît, isn't it? 2 beers.
Well, that's your language, yeah. So I don't drink beer.
Right, we'll get on to feedbacks. We had some, you remember yesterday you were talking about being an official in athletics or sport in general, and your experiences. That went down quite well with a few avid viewers. Lots of compliments about officials and how sometimes they're a little bit underappreciated, but others do go to the effort to thank officials after they competed, etc. Steve Fury thought you were being too modest about your accomplishments as an official.
I don't talk about myself. It's not about me. It's about, trying to make things better, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Graham Saker said, great questions. Finally, after 19 episodes, somebody realizes what's...
They're only great questions if you get good answers.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. And Andy Timble, was it? I should have. Just excuse me a second. This isn't very professional. Andy Tyndall. Must get the name spot on. Andy recounted a time when he was doing a steeplechase and the officials had to move a barrier into place during the race, and he hurdled it while the officials were carrying it. Have you had anything similar happen to you?
Yes, I have. I was at a UK YDL and we were ringing the bell, but the 2 guys who were moving the barriers decided to take the 3rd barrier, which is by the 200-metre start, off of the track. And so the first 2 people coming up to that barrier, they removed it as they were coming up to it. So the first 2 didn't go over it. And the referee was waving his arms and shouting, etc. And they were going to put it back on. So I just said to them, leave it off. Everyone then has a fair playing field because nobody actually jumps that barrier. And then I just said to them, you can't put that on power of 10, which they did eventually put it onto power of 10, but it's a nonsense, because if you haven't jumped all the barriers, etc., it doesn't mean anything. So, but that was a bit trying. And he said, "What?" He came waddling over and he said, "What happened? What happened?" And I said, "Well, they simply took it off." And to make it fair to everybody, it has to be the same for everyone. So you couldn't put the barrier back on, but it's not the sort of thing you want to happen.
No, I think what I would have done, quick thinking though by you, but I think what I would have done is shouted to the athletes to jump in the air at the appropriate position.
But the thing is, some will jump higher than others, and then it'll all be, oh, he jumped higher than me, and I didn't jump, so he used more energy. Oh, you could just open a whole category of complaints. So it's much easier just to leave the barrier where it was and just go with that. And they were naughty. They should never have put it on power 10.
No. Yeah, well, we'll keep that between us. Yeah. Grazia Manzotti was talking about her progress towards being an official. She was aiming at level 1, but you need 4 meetings to do.
You just need 4 experience. Level 1 is very, very straightforward. You just need 4 meetings that you can go to, and you can use previous years. But everyone's in the same boat here. We probably won't do many meetings at all this year, one way or another, if we're lucky to do any at all. And we have to be realistic. But everybody's in that boat, and so no one's going to be penalised, and they're just bring it forward. It's a bit like moving the Olympics and then moving the Worlds. So you've got 3 years in a row of athletics.
So, but before you do your 4 experience meetings, how long's the course you have to do?
Well, the course is about, I don't know, about 6 hours, and then you learn all sorts of things. You go around the track and see where markings are. It's always a good idea if you're a track person to know where people are starting, etc. So that's a good thing. So you just broaden your knowledge, but there's no substitute for actually doing the job and being helped by someone who's done it before. That's the way to learn. That's how I learned, and I'm very, very grateful for people who took their time and taught me.
So a 6-hour course, and then 4 attendances helping out at meetings.
Yes, and those meetings can be as short as 2 hours. It's just getting those experiences, and obviously doing your DBS, which you need anyway to coach and come into contact with young children anyway, and I'm sure she's done that now. And then it's literally you get your licence, and it's quite a thrill to get your first licence, but you have to renew it every 3 years. So
yeah. Good. And I'll just throw in, we've mentioned podcasts before, and I've been getting in on my walks to something I'd listened to before, which is At Home with Colin Murray, which is where he interviews sports people, and he's done a great interviews with the Brownleys. Ian Holloway was good. Ian Holloway, do you know who Ian Holloway is? No. Football manager, quite from the West.
That's the reason why I don't know him.
Yeah, and Jurgen Klopp, you know who Jurgen Klopp is?
Oh, I know who Jurgen Klopp is, because he's always on the telly. He always makes me laugh. Like, he's such a scruffy bugger.
I think he said it himself in the interview, to be honest.
But to be quite frank, it doesn't matter what you look like, as long as you can do the job, and he does do the job very well. So at the end of the day, looks on everything, aren't they?
That applies to a lot of officials, I would say, as well. Good. Right. I must say,
my hair especially. What are you on about?
I've got to say that preparing for this episode is the hardest yet. You see this professional performance, but the preparation and the thinking about what am I going to ask, and I was drying up, and I wasn't sure what to do. But as has often happened, I come up against adversity, with the answers. So I've got a little bit to talk about now, and I'm calling this the Marmite people. Do you know why?
Because you like it and I hate it.
You're on the right track, and I'm going to reel off a number of celebrities, and without being too rude, I'm going to say You've got to say whether you like them or you don't like them.
Oh God. I'll just say no or yes, I think, then I'm not allowed to be rude.
You can add a little bit of insight about one-liner. So
Okay.
I've got 5 female and 5 male. Okay.
Okay.
And I haven't picked them for any particular reason other than they are a bit Marmite, you know.
Do you like them then?
Ah, yeah, well, it can be split. Andy Murray.
I like Andy Murray. Some people don't, but I just find him pretty honest, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, good. Good. I think it's Amazon Prime. It's called Resurfacing. Great documentary about his rehabilitation. Well, it hasn't finished yet. He's trying to sort his hip out still, I think, but great documentary. Okay, we'll go on a female, Paula Radcliffe.
Well, she's one of our great distance runners, and again, she doesn't take any prisoners. She talks very frankly how she feels, etc. She doesn't like drug cheats, and I agree with quite a lot of what she comes out with.
Yeah. Good. Okay, Mo Farah.
He's a bit more difficult to sort of like warm up to because he's very aloof. I mean, from his performance point of view, you've got to love him, but with the American thing, with his coach and everything else, not mentioning names, you just don't know. So I'm a bit sceptical about him now. I don't really understand why I am. It's just I feel perhaps he hasn't been quite. I mean, he's shown us his blood tests and things like that, and so therefore we can only conclude that he hasn't had anything to do with it. But then Lance Armstrong swore for years that he didn't cheat, and then you find out from people who were around him and helped him that he did. So I don't know anymore. I just don't know. So I'm sort of like in 2 parts.
Okay, well, I'll just correct you on that. I think they're talking about releasing all his blood test results from the past.
Oh, they haven't done it yet. Oh, right. I thought they had. Sorry.
Right, another one similar to Mo Farah, Kim Kardashian.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started with that family. I have no idea why people are obsessed with them. And to be quite honest with you, sometimes their behaviour is, well, to be questioned.
Boris Johnson.
Well, you either love him or hate him. Again,
That's the whole point of this section. That is the whole point.
I know. And I'm trying to make up where I stand. Sometimes I think he's really spot on, and other times I think, oh, for God's sake, spit it out, man. And it's just like that, isn't it? But I do think he's doing what I class as a good job. I mean, there are many critics out there, and it's very easy to criticise because you're not actually there in the moment, and you have the hindsight of all the information of what's happened. So you critics, you get out and do something, and let us critique you.
Very good. Margaret Thatcher.
Oh my God. Well, she's only one of 2 female prime ministers. I should be sort of like whipping and saying, oh, what wonderful. But I do think she made some fundamental mistakes when she was prime minister. But it's difficult because, again, I've got hindsight into it. So
Very good answers, very tactful. So that is. Right, we've got a couple of music ones. Rolling Stones.
Well, I don't particularly like the Rolling Stones. They're not my cup of tea, but I do think that they do good things in the world. I mean, they're not. That's all I really want to say.
Okay, Spice Girls.
Again, not my cup of tea. But I mean, each to their own. They've all got, they're all human beings. They've all got to live, etc. They're doing what they like, so that just, I'm live and let lie.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And I've got a couple of comedians. Very difficult with a well-known living female comedian. Have you got? Can you think of any, particularly that's really well known?
Well, no, most of them have died, haven't they? Really, it's terrible. I can't think of anyone that's really well known.
I,
No.
I mean, I didn't do a lot of research, but Miranda Hart I picked out.
Yeah, again, she's not my cup of tea. I'm not really a big fan. I listen to her for about 3 minutes and I think, oh God,
And Ricky Gervais.
I love him. I absolutely love him. He's, you know, he just says it as it is, sort of thing, and that's where I am.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that's really good. Now, so that's given you a little bit of a warm up, and just to finish off, having assessed these people, what qualities do you admire in people generally?
I think someone who's frank. I have got a sense of humour, so I do, you know, enjoy people who don't take themselves too seriously. There are obviously serious occasions when you have to be serious, but most of the time, I like it sort of light-hearted and moving along and not too intense.
Right. So not taking yourself too seriously, and what was the other one? Sense of humour,
Frank.
frank and honest. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that will do for today. Give people something to talk about. As I said, I have been struggling. I mean, you couldn't tell that from those questions, I know, but I have been struggling. I don't really want to go into things like personal issues or anything in life that you've done and too much and own or anything like that. I think that gets a bit tedious. So we do need some ideas before we bring in other people into this. So yeah, got any thoughts on that? You know,
Well, there's a few subjects that we could approach, but you're right. We don't want to go into the nitty gritty. I mean, relationships are very complicated, and you work on them continuously. It's a moving platform because one day you're absolutely hunky dunky and you think the person's absolutely wonderful. The next day they do something really that gets on your nerves, and you think, oh God. But I agree with you that to go into personal details, etc. I mean, I feel incredibly lucky, so maybe that's why I'm quite happy in myself. So I don't know.
I'd like to think I've got something to do with that, but
Well, you certainly keep me laughing, I can tell you that. I never know what you're going to do next.
you shot up in the you're right up here at the moment because you produced those granola bars, didn't you? You made them.
Yeah, well, we ran out of cereal bars, and you sort of like went, oh, and I thought, well, actually, I can make some. So I did.
Great job. So well done on that, and thank you for the interview this morning or the chat this morning.
All right, I'll see you later. Bye.
All right.